The story I am about to tell you is about a person who loves our channel and wanted to submit his story. We've known him personally for many years, and even during the time that these paranormal events were happening, and we have witnessed the events firsthand. He isn't trying to gain attention, nor is he trying to sell a book or make anything off this story. He's asked us not to use his real name, and to not use the actual name of the home in which these events occurred. For this reason, we won't give out the location of the actual photos of the house, and the name of the house has been changed to protect the privacy for everyone involved. The events that led up to this started back in 1984. I was 12 years old. I was laying in bed one night in our home in southern Arkansas. We had a really nice home, and everything money could buy. My father had always had a really good job and made phenomenal money. We had it all: nice vehicles, a huge stately home, a boat, and even a maid. Life was great until December of that year. I remember the exact day it all began to change. My dad came home from work, and as I mentioned, I was laying in bed, but I was awake. All of a sudden, I heard my mother cry out, "Oh God, no! What are we going to do?" As it turned out, my dad had lost his job, and we were on an economic downfall in which was the equivalent of a jet airliner that was in free fall. We were about to take a hard financial crash. Within a span of about 6 months, we went from finer things to absolute poverty. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. The job market in the area where we lived was bleak at best, so we decided to move to southeast Missouri, where we had some friends and relatives. We ended up taking what was left of our savings and buying an old decrepit farmhouse that was in need of a full restoration. My father was one of those jack-of-all-trades kind of men who could do just about anything, and before we knew it, that old abandoned, falling-down farmhouse looked as good as new. We worked day and night, cleaning and painting, pulling up old carpet and polishing old antique linoleum. The house was eventually a beautiful work of art. It had sat empty for many, many years. The previous owner had passed away, and none of the relatives had even bothered coming to get their things. The house was built around 80 years earlier, and had only one family in it the entire time, up until we bought it. The Mooney family. It was passed down from one generation to the next until the family's last living heir. All of their things were in a room covered up in an extra room. There were all types of old boxes of photos, furniture, and one very ugly old ragged orange chair. As my brother and I began the process of moving in our beds, I went to my chosen room and saw the chair in there next to the window. I asked everyone who put it in my room, and everyone denied it. I simply shrugged it off and moved it back to the extra room. That was the ugliest chair I had ever seen. As I mentioned, things were very hard for us starting over. We not only had to use wood heat because we couldn't afford to use gas or central heating, but we actually had to go out in the woods and cut our own wood, carry it back to the truck, take it home and split and stack it. We didn't have money for even basic groceries, so we had to raise our own meats, such as pigs and chickens, as well as growing our own garden. It was hard work, but I actually didn't mind it for the most part. I particularly enjoyed chopping firewood, and I began to get really buff. The area where I would chop the wood was outside, just under my window. One evening, I looked up and saw something that scared me half to death. It was about 6 or 7 in the afternoon one fall night, just as it was starting to get dark. I looked up at my second-story bedroom window, and there was a really scary-looking old woman. I had to look a couple of times to be sure I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. There she was, as clear as a bell. I could see every detail of her face. What was she doing in my room though, and who the hell was she? I ran up the stairs and got to my room, and no one was there. I searched the entire house, and no old lady. Odd, but okay. I told my family about it, and they all laughed it off and said I was seeing things. A few days later, it happened again. Same woman. She simply stared at me with a grim, cold stare. This time, I was really kind of taken aback. What in the actual hell? Again, I ran up the stairs and again, no one was there, but at the window, again was that damned ugly orange chair. I wondered who kept putting it in my room. A day or two later, I had gotten all my chores done. Firewood was all split, hay was all baled, animals were all fed and watered, so I decided to start looking through all the old junk upstairs in that spare room. As I was looking through the old photos, I saw a photo of the old woman. It was clearly her. I found a few other photos of her when she was a little bit younger, and although it was group photos, and she was younger, and in better shape than what she looked like now, it was her. I walked down the road to a friend of mine's house who had lived next door. He was my age and didn't know her, but he lived with his grandma and grandpa, and he said they would probably know who it was. When I told them what was going on, they just kind of laughed and asked me if I could show them in the pictures who it was that was in my room. By this time, it had happened a few times. I pulled out the photos and showed them, and they asked me if I could pick her out of the group photos. I did. They went from halfway laughing about it like my family did, to a very serious look of, "Oh God. There's no way he can be right about this." They told me they had known the family for many, many years, and that the woman that I was seeing had lived upstairs and in my room. She was a very beautiful woman in her younger days, but had gotten some form of a disability that left her unable to walk, and it slowly killed her. Her days consisted of sitting by the window in that orange chair, and staring at the graveyard down the road, which was where she was ultimately buried. If I had been older and more mature, I probably would have handled what I did next a lot differently, but I was just a kid, and no one else aside from a few of my friends who would come hang out with me when I was working and actually saw her with their own eyes actually believed me, so I dragged the old chair outside and poured some lighter fluid on it and lit it up. I never saw the old woman again after that. I'm not sure if I made her mad and she chose not to make herself seen, or if I somehow helped her move on to the afterlife somehow. I really hope it's the latter, and that she is happy and reunited with her family and no longer sad. A couple of years later, we moved out of state and stayed out for another 35 years. I ended up buying a place about 40 miles from the old house. I told my wife and kids about the old haunted house, so one day we decided to drive by so I could show them the window where I would always see the ghost. Part of me was really nervous because I was kind of worried that I would see her again. As we went down the old road and came upon the house, we noticed a "For Sale by Owners" sign out front. We decided to stop and say hello to the new owners. They were such nice and gracious people. Even though we weren't looking to buy, they let us look inside at the old house, and they showed us everything they had done to remodel it. I had told them what kind of shape it was in when we had bought it back in the 80s, and one thing led to another, and I ended up telling them about the ghost of the old woman, and how she came to be, and how I ended up burning the chair and never saw her again. They told me that in all the years they had had it, there had never been anything paranormal happen. I even toyed with the idea of buying the old house and property back. The land it's on is stunningly beautiful, and would have been a joy for our kids and grandkids. Unfortunately though, it was too far away from where I worked. Every once in a while, I still drive by of an evening if I happen to be in the vicinity. I don't know why, but I still often wonder if I will see her again. Hope you liked today's user-submitted story. If you love content like ours, please consider giving us a thumbs up and hit that notification bell. Graveyard Dance t-shirts, hoodies, face masks, and all other types of goodies are in the description box below, as is the links to all our social media. Please like, follow and subscribe. Tell your friends, share on social and all that good stuff. Till next time.